invite great panelists. So we have Glenn, Rogers, Nagendra, and then Alex. If you could, before we could start, if you could introduce yourself that for a minute, each one of you. So benefit of guests that they would get to know you more and what you have been doing and all that.
I've been with Bupa only. I actually had a joke with Sam earlier, who was here. We had a project that go so well last night. Not ours, not a workforce project, but another project. So she's gone back to the office, but I'm coming up to probation and shortly, so not quite 6 months. So said, is there anything to worry about? Said, I think we would have had that conversation. But I've worked across both workforce management and leading the contact centre enterprise across a lot of different organisations. More recently, came out of 6 years of consulting, largely in the WFM domain, but also across quality and just general contact centre operations. Moved to Melbourne back in January from the Gold Coast, the opposite of everyone else, pretty much. Loving life in Melbourne. We'll go through some of the things that we're working on and some of the challenges that we face, but I'd like to probably have the conversation and share with the panelists as well. A bit of a discussion on capability as we go through each of those topics as well, because finding in our domain and what we do, there's very, very different skills from our low-level analysts to the high level, and how we're actually attracting and retaining them across the different elements as well. So hopefully we'll get a bit of that as we go through these bits and pieces. But yeah, that's me for now.
Yeah, thanks, Glenn. Alex, yeah.
Cool. Hi, my name is Alex Rayson. I'm working with Raj at Elucids, and I have over 20 years of experience in technology leadership roles across delivery and operations, as well as transformations, supporting a number of different domains such as finance, supply chain management, HR, health and safety, billing, in multiple sectors. So more recently, I've been working in the telco sector, so as head of DevSecOps, and have pretty much been on this journey around AI and Gen AI. I think it's very, very exciting times ahead. So that's it.
Great, Alex. Yeah. Rogers, yeah.
My name is Rogers. I currently lead the workforce planning at NCS Group. Just to give a brief overview of what NCS is. NCS is an IT consulting firm. We have got around 30,000 employees, 10,000 in Singapore and around 2,000 close to in Australia, spread across all the states in Australia. So close to the federal, state governments, all the public sector, private sector enterprises. I am just an accidental workforce professional management professional because I didn't want to choose my career in the workforce planning, but I happened to be there in my previous organization. I worked for around 14 years with Infosys. So there I shifted my career into workforce planning by chance, but once I landed up there, I realized that this is a cool function to be because you are on the top of everything, because you know about everything that's happening in the organization, being a workforce planning professional. And a lot of people depends on you for data information. So this is a really powerful job actually, right? So I like that being there in that role, and that really shifted my career into workforce planning. And it's been close to, I think, 10 years I've been into hardcore workforce planning. Starting from the strategic workforce planning, like I've worked in the organization in the maturity model, I've seen the level 5. I've worked there. I'm also working currently in a level 1 where there's nothing there actually. So I've seen all the transitions happening from the ladder. So that's about me and family. I've got a wife and 3 boys in Australia for the last 6 years.
Thank you, Rogers. Yeah.
I think I can relate to your story. My name is, as you know, Nagendra. I have 20 years of HR experience, and I was fortunate to work in different parts of India, east, west, north, south. India is very diverse. And I was in 4 years in Philippines with Teleperformance. Teleperformance is world's largest contact center in terms of size, revenue, geography. I was senior director of human resources in Philippines. Now in Australia for 2 years. I stayed in Philippines for 4 years. Very, very eventful and exciting journey which continues here. I worked in HR in different industries, and every industry had a different business model, different set of priorities, different set of people. So I see all of them as a different world altogether. But one thing was common, that every company or every industry I worked with, they were striving for HR excellence. And that journey was at different stages in different companies. And there was always an opportunity for me to do something better, something different. And with the consistent support of my stakeholders, team members, we got some global awards. And I was working in my recent past assignment, I was working with Oasis Group, same company I was working in India. Then I got transferred here in Australia. I thought it would be a good opportunity. I worked with them for 2 years, and then I realized there's so much I can do in HR. And just 2 months ago, I started my own HR advisory company. I have a couple of clients. I also do some industry faculty assignments with colleges. I teach human resources, leadership and management. So pretty much about me, but the same thing, when I finished my graduation, that point in time, a lot of my friends were doing engineering and medicine. I chose science, Bachelor of Science, and I thought chemistry will be a good choice for me. But after studying chemistry, I realized there's no chemistry between me and subject chemistry. Then I moved into HR, then I moved into law, and then finally a research PhD. So different experience, different learning. And every experience, every study has given me a different perspective. Right? So very, very excited. Thank you, Shiva, for the invitation.
Great. Thank you. So, as we step into 2025, middle of the year, workforce management is at the pivotal point. The integration of AI and automation is shaping the roles. A lot of roles are getting redundant. Some of the roles are getting created in the business because of AI, and the clients are expecting something new automation, or like new ways of doing, new problems, and then new solutions that we have to offer. Considering that, we got to embrace AI and digital transformation, enhance customer experience, and build resilience and future automation. Put together all that. So, how is AI currently influencing your workforce planning and operations? What are the biggest challenges that you have faced while integrating AI into workforce, if at all you started? And how can AI be leveraged not just for efficiency, but also for better human decision making? Yeah, any insights?
Wow, that's a big topic.
Long question.
Big topic, but look, I think we're on the journey, and as I said before, a lot of our insights or a lot of the information that is in front of us is about customer intent, what they need help with. We have all the data and information points, so that's the funny thing. Joining it together is becoming easier with AI. But importantly, we're choosing segments of how to do that. So we're not trying to bite off big elements, but choosing particular customer journeys that we can leverage AI within. And in addition to that, then there's the data element on that, so that we can look at what the next step and prioritize. So that's probably the first part. The second part to the question, or the second response. Now I don't have to yell. It's awesome. I have to see my kids later. I might need my voice name. I'm kidding. They don't listen to me anyway. But the second point is that we've adopted a pretty strong planning framework with the areas of the business that are providing the go forward So whether it be the impacts and what we're expecting in terms of, in some cases, what we call unmet demand, things we know customers need, but we're waiting for them to come to us and looking at proactive opportunities, or whether it be benefits from reducing reasons for them to want to make contact. We want the value conversation, we want the value. And in line with that's what's shaping what we're doing. So to summarise that in a couple of points, choosing customer journeys and segments that are going to add value is probably the summary. And then rolling that back into our planning processes so we know we've got the right people with the right skills in the right time frames. Which is not easy, it's a learning process, I think, is the other bit. And that's probably where my work is, and my work with Sam, who was here before, is all about taking people on the journey on what that looks like, as opposed to just expecting it to be right from day dot. It's like, these are the assumptions, this is how it works, and playing that out in some way, shape or form. So I think that may go somewhere towards answering it.
Thanks, Glenn. Yeah, Alex. Yeah, you want to share same insights, same question? How AI and automation currently influencing your workforce planning and operations?
Yeah, thank you. So I think it's a very good question. For starters, I think it's very important for, especially in the technology world, for us to stay competitive, to continue to implement any advantages that you might have. So Gen AI is, I see that as a huge advantage, and also a way that the entire business will be transformed in the coming years. There's no question about that in my mind. I haven't seen a take-up as big as what Gen AI or AI tools have been in the last couple of years across a broad range of industries, companies. You absolutely have, from the biggest corporates to non-profit organizations, everyone in some shape or form is using AI nowadays, or at least is trying to use it and trying to understand and experiment with it. The same can't be said for some of the technologies that came earlier. So we had blockchain, for example. There was a lot of hype around that, and it has certain usage, and certainly very good use cases in certain industries. But with Gen AI, you can see applications right across from every possible use case that you can think of in every sector. And so number one is basically to not to be complacent and not to be left behind, because the expectations from technology or on technology from the business is that we're going to be continuously getting faster. Sometimes there's an expectation that we'll be cheaper as well, but certainly there's an expectation to get faster in getting the solutions to market. And I see Gen AI as a great technology that will actually deliver on that promise. In the technology space, you can see Gen AI applications right from requirements gathering all the way to code development, testing, and then to operations. And one of the proof of concepts that we've done was to reduce the time that it takes to resolve a production incident. So, and sometimes it depends on the incident, but sometimes it takes days to figure out what the root cause is and then be able to solve it. So with Gen AI, the proof of concept that we ran, we're able to get the time frame down by at least 7 hours to something like, Gen AI can produce a hypothesis on what the solution is, or hypothesis on what the root cause is, and recommend a solution within 5 to 10 minutes. That's just incredible. That's just blowing, the entire paradigm away. So using tools like this will really help us to change the whole dynamic. So, and from the workforce planning perspective, it's really important to ensure that everyone is continuing to to look at these technologies and continue to upskill and experiment. If you don't do that, there's a good chance that we lag behind. And there was a good slide, I think Dr. Shiva might have put that one up, around where, or maybe one in Igor that was presenting earlier, where there's 9 million jobs, sorry, I think something like 9 million jobs in Australia were going to be displaced, but 11 million created. Now, that's quite promising, but we've also got to understand that the 11 million jobs that will be created will be quite different from the 9 million jobs that will be displaced. So it's very important then to ensure that the workforce is able to evolve with the technology as it's coming in. And now is absolutely the time to be really proactive and get across these technologies. And the experimentation part is very important as well. And again, with AI, you have plenty of possibilities to experiment, fail fast, and then move on and make decisions from there. And the other point that I was going to make in terms of the improved decision making is that I have heard of some companies considering using AI technology on their boards. So in a board meeting, you would essentially have AI listening in and then providing some recommendations on what can be improved or some suggestions. So that's it's a double-edged sword, of course, but that's an interesting way of kind of validating whether the decisions have been made in the right way. And you can certainly apply the same principles to anything that you do. It's always good to double check. Ask AI if this is the set of circumstances and facts that are available, what would you do in this situation, and see what outset comes back. You don't necessarily need to endorse that decision, but it would be interesting to just double check your thinking when you're approached. Thank you.
Great, Alex. Yeah, Roger, so you have your perspective.
Maybe I'll share one or two case studies of experiments that we have done with AI in our organization in the workforce planning side. As we all discussed, like this strategy workforce planning and the operational side. Maybe I'll touch with the operational side first. And this experiment has actually made us to realize that there is a lot of reskilling or upskilling efforts that can happen with AI coming into our day-to-day life. And this was a classic case study for that one actually. So traditionally, if you ask me 5 years before, what my team of resource managers would do is basically they would take the demand from the team, maybe from the project managers or from the sales guys, and then match with the talent available internally and see who is the best match for those opportunities. That's the kind of work that they used to do actually. Fast forward, we have implemented bots in the organization. So what it does is that basically, as soon as a requirement is there with a project manager or a salesperson, he goes into the bot and key in the requirement that he's looking at for a Java developer with XYZ skills with this kind of experience. So it scans the internal profiles of all the people. It scans the people who are on the projects who are expected to roll off in the next few weeks or few months, and it throws out a best fit of 3-4 names out of that, telling that these are shortlisted people that could be used for your work. Now, what next is that we've got the names now. So the role of my resource managers now is different actually. They don't look into matching of the profiles now. So what they do is that these project managers or account managers who come with these suggested names, they ask the resource managers, hey, I got these 3 names or 4 names from the board. Whom do you think is the best fit for this role? So now what they're doing is that they need to do some background work definitely. So what they're doing nowadays is that they're trying to come closer to the consultants, coming closer to the employees actually, trying to understand what they're good at, what their experience is that, what are the skill sets is that actually. So they're trying to understand the consultant more in detail, so that when the project team comes with this recommendation, they are able to recommend accurately based on your suggestions of 3 people which the board has suggested, based on our experience of interacting with these consultants. These are the 2 best fit for your role. So look at the transition that has happened over the last 3-4 years actually, from just being a resume matches to somebody who is actually collaborating with the business with the ideal fit. Right? So the role has completely shifted actually. That's the kind of shift that we have seen within our own organization, where AI has actually helped in upskilling our own team actually. That's one example of that one. The second example is basically somebody have shared about what's the limit of AI, like how AI can really create problems actually, and we have actually experienced that also in our organization. So we mostly work in a client-facing role. Our consultants work in a client-facing role, and they go through multiple client interviews to get selected in these roles. And at a time, we found that the success rate of these interviews were coming down actually, and people were failing those interviews. And one reason for this was that the preparation for the interview was not at a great level. So we decided to leverage technology into that one and see how we can prepare well these employees. So again, we designed AI-based chatbot where we had we were connected to different information sources. One was basically the insights from the account manager about the kind of work that is going to happen, the kind of technology, etc., what the client is looking at. We also had information coming from the consultants who are already there on the client side working for that particular client about the kind of work that is there, the kind of work culture that is there, about the environment that is there, etc. Plus, we had this the resume of the consultant who is being put forward for the interview. So, gathering these three information sources, it threw out different interview scenario questions to the consultant who was preparing for these interviews actually. Now, the challenge that what happened was that after going through these mock interviews, many of the consultants came out more worried about the interview than more confident about the interview. So that really surprised us. Like after the interview, they reached out to their line managers and told that we are not very confident to go into the interview because the questions were really tough and we think that we are not able to clear those interviews. So we try to understand like what has happened here actually. We are just trying to prepare the people for the interview, but they lost confidence in attending the interview itself actually. But then we realized that it was a problem created by the resumes which was being loaded into the system, because what we normally see is that normally people write a lot of things in the resumes, right? They normally overinflate the resumes actually. That happens here also. Like so, the questions that the AI was generating was based on all the things that they put in the resumes. Like I know this thing, I know this technology, I know that technology, I know this one, that one, etc. So the questions were also created based on that one. So we understood that the problem with the resume itself, right? So the input was not creating the required output actually. So we have to tone down that one. We have to actually ask the employees to give what you actually know actually, what your skill sets are actually. So that was a classic case study of how AI actually backfired in the process of doing that one. But when we corrected that one, I think it actually worked well, and still we are using that one. So these are some of the two scenarios that actually live worked on AI and has actually helped in our workforce management.
Thanks, Ashish. Yeah.
So I think pretty much covered. I'll just round it off. The biggest challenge in HR is how do we leverage the technology without and with retaining the human touch. That's very important for us. Now we use HR in fact not only in HR, in all the organizational processes for every function, right? But how we use that effectively. For example, very good example cited by Roses, hiring. Now, hiring, it's just not about just the screening the resume. It's not about just about matching the keywords. It's about when you conduct the interviews, AI-based, AI-powered interviews. They are able to match those. They are able to gauge those sentiment analysis, emotional analysis, confidence. The eyes are not downcast. The person is looking confident. So all those kind of insights are being given by the AI today. Right? Imagine we have thousands of people for the same job. Now it's human. It's going to be very labor intensive. We do it manually. Now AI will make it much easier. It will filter out those 1,000 to just narrow down to 10 people, and you have to just select those people, one out of those 10 people. So life has become so easy. Second example is for employee engagement and retention. If you look at the cost of attrition, because I work in different industry, and most of the business leaders are not even aware of the cost of attrition. In one of the companies, I did the attrition analysis, the cost of attrition. And surprisingly, the cost of attrition was about 30% of annual profit of that organization. So our revenue was close to about $300 million. So the cost of attrition was $90 million. And I calculated, I showed them out, the manpower cost, overhead cost, training cost. And that's very, very interesting insight. If you look at, even if we are able to reduce the attrition by even a percentage point, that will contribute significantly to the bottom line of the organization. Now, if your business leaders are able to understand that, right? Because every organization, cost is industry agnostic, because every industry is focusing on cost. So, how do we leverage that technology in our advantage to ensure that we are able to deliver that value, able to create that system which is sustainable. So biggest challenge or biggest opportunity I would say for HR is how do we make sure that we have systems which are efficient, which are resilient, but based on that data analysis or insights which we are getting on a real-time basis, how the leaders are using that real time to make sure that organization is able to create value. That's something HR has to focus on.
Sounds great. Thanks, Nikita. I think that I see that great insights from each one of you for the first question. It will be more the customer experience piece of it. So, how does workforce strategy impacts the end-to-end customer experience? And what shifts you have made to align your workforce capabilities with evolving customer experiences? Do you have any insights to share from your organization point of view, or maybe from the market standpoint of view? Yeah, Clay? Or anyone can take.
Well, this is, I had a feeling this one might come up. But look, I think I've been lucky enough in my career and every organisation I've worked in to get buy-in to my WFM plan. So we're having that conversation a bit before over lunch. I have that at the moment. There's significant value I think my team offers. There's significant buy-in to that. So the only way that that's come about is been linked back to CX and the sensitivities within the WFM model that align to that. So, for every 1% of costs to the previous point, 1% of attrition costs us this, 1% of productivity costs us that, and walking that talk. I took a travel business. I've never worked in travel before, and I went in there as the GM looking after all things travel apparently. At the time, they were turning over $50 million. When I left, we were turning over $250 a year. And that was purely based on WFM practice, and tying it back to the customer experience. Those sensitivities, what 1% here was worth to us, and the board could buy into that. They could see very clearly that 1% extra in salary costs generated this in sales, and if we kept everything else on track, attrition, unplanned leave, all of those elements, we'd be way more profitable. Now, as somebody who became a 1% shareholder of that business, I was very happy it sold just before COVID hit to Flight Centre. So from that point of view, I think really simply live, breathe the sensitivities and know how they connect back to your customer experience and what your company is trying to achieve in the market. As soon as you do that and you can actually talk the language, it all comes together relatively easily.
Thanks. So from my perspective, from a technology perspective, I think customer experience is absolutely critical. It's crucial to successful technology solutions. And what's it used to be that in technology space, we were looking at hiring really great developers, people who are really good at coding. I think that now the dynamics have shifted, and what we're really looking for is people that will be able to understand business problems, they can formulate a business problem, and then be able to to solve that business problem. And again, with the shift in the technology capability that we have, Gen AI can pretty much produce some of the coding. So we talked about, we were talking earlier today about vibing. And I've actually, to be honest, I've only come across that term a couple of weeks ago when somebody said, I went to a vibing party, and I thought, and I actually said, what is it? Is that a party where you vibe different, smoking flavors? No, it's basically low code coding. So basically, and it's becoming apparently a bit of a craze where you attend these workshops or these parties where you create an application from nothing, where most people that attend these sessions have no experience in coding per se. And I think that's more and more that's what the future of coding and technology will look like. There'll be lots of people that will be capable to do the coding component with all these great auxiliary tools that we have available around us. But what would be really important is for technologists to invest the time in understanding the business, be able to identify the problems, and then address those problems. So skills like problem solving and having a really good appreciation for the business, I think is what's going to fundamentally transform workforce planning and workforce skill set from a technology profession going forward.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe I'll add different perspective to the customer. Basically, for me, the customer, definitely the end customer is there. But as a workforce planning professional, I think my consultants, my employees in the organization are also my customers. Maybe I'll share another story because I'm a storyteller. I love telling stories. So this is another example which I wanted to share where I could get that smile back into the customer's face actually. So 2021 was the time when COVID hit the market everywhere. So I was working in one of the IT consulting firms at that time, and we were running low on the utilization across the organization. There's a huge pressure to cut the cost. So we were looking at all the levers to cut the cost, and one was basically to reduce the bench strength, people who are on the bench. So the criteria was to look at the people who are aging on the bench, like 60 days, 90 days on the bench, which is basically the term that we use in IT consulting, right? So we picked up around 9 of them who are on the bench for more than 90 days, and to get them out actually, to make their roles redundant. As the head of workforce planning, it was very easy task for me. Like, just have to sign off that, okay, these 9 people exit within 15 days of time, my utilization will go up and my numbers will really look good actually. So I will be in a good position. So the names were shortlisted, and they were given the first round of consultation happened with them. They were given 15 days to find out if they can get a job inside, or else they would be exited after 15 days. It's a huge organization. It was very difficult for them to go and find a job because they're too junior in the company, and the connection and networks they don't have actually. So it's almost sure that they lose their jobs. But being a workforce planning professional, we also need to bring in that personal touch to that, right? So I could see many of them with families, with children, with mortgages, and it was the COVID time. So going outside and getting a job was extremely not possible actually. So as my team, what is that something that you can do differently in the next 15 days of time? Can you get these people back to work? I know that we have tried so many things, but this is a do or die situation here now. So we need to do everything that is possible, turn out everything, knock every doors to see possible if we can get projects for these people. So we tried. I couldn't sleep many of those days because I could see that these people losing the jobs and stepping out of the organization actually. That was the hard thing that I could ever imagine actually. So we did everything possible. We knocked project managers, delivery managers, sales people to see these are the opportunities. There's something which was in low probability stages. We tried to push it higher. And you won't believe that within 13 days, we were able to get all these people back into projects. And if you ask me, what is the most happiest moment for me as a workforce planning professional, when I saw the smiles back on their faces, those 9 of them, that was the most happiest moment for me actually. and I would say that as when I see those, they are my real customers, right? So when I see the smiles back on them, even today, when I've left the organization 3 years back, many of them are in touch with me. The only reason is that I was able to impact their life actually in some or other way. So I think sometimes that humanness into that workforce planning side is also very important. Sometimes because all this AI coming, technology coming, and all those things, we see numbers everywhere. Actually, we see numbers, data, utilization, efficiency. But beyond that, there are all people working behind this actually. How can you touch their lives? Because they are the one who is bringing all these numbers and revenue and all those things to us actually. So I always think in that perspective that they are my first customers and I need to make them happy. Then my end customer will be always happy.
So that's a great insight.
Thank you. I have very different perspective because I worked in contact industry for a very long period of time, and I have always been on the other side of the table, which means WFM and HR will always be on the loggerheads. Why? Because WFM would want X number of people, and for HR, one of the biggest challenges is hiring the right set of people within the defined timelines, within the defined agreed hiring budget. It's very challenging. So, for example, the WFM would say that we need 100 people in a month's time, which is very difficult, very aggressive plan. So at the planning stage, when HR is involved, HR is not involved during the sales process. They are involved once the sales is signed, sealed, when they have the complete visibility on numbers, on the RAM plan. That's when HR come into play in some of the organizations. Other organizations, great progressive organizations, they keep HR in the loop right from the sales process, and they create the realistic program plan. So some challenges we have with regards to WFM is at the planning stage, design problem. Second is, since I come from the HR background, I believe the customer experience always starts with employee experience. If we are able, and there is a consistent, surveys, results, research studies which show that the outstanding employee experience result into outstanding customer experience. So WFM, I think, in my opinion, plays a very important role in scheduling that roster, ensuring that we have right number of people in every shift, and the shrinkages, absenteeism based on past analysis is looked upon, and the workforce management strategies planned in such a way that there is no uneven workload. And it's just not about numbers, it's also about training people. They have the required knowledge how to handle those calls, difficult customers, not only the product knowledge. Because once we have the right distribution of work, when we have people who are trained and knowledgeable, who know how to efficiently and effectively handle those challenges, give those resolutions. Obviously, your escalations will be less, your transfers will be much more small in numbers, and eventually that will result into better NPS and FCI. Right? So that's very important for me. And how do we focus more about creating a culture where people feel heard, valued? That's very important. Because if I am demotivated, I'm not going to sound, an outstanding customer experience agent over the call or over the email. That will translate into my work. So it's very important. And create outstanding customer experience. It starts with employees. And we don't need any major transformation. Based on my experience, I can see that. We need to focus on those small things. And that will give very huge, that will make very huge impact in overall customer experience.
Great, Another. So we move on to the third question. So we have the fourth question is the last one. It's about talent and skill transformation. How are you preparing your workforce for AI, augmentation, and digital roles? What are the reskilling or upskilling initiatives are providing effectively? And how do you retain and motivate talent in the fast changing environment?
I'll go first this time.
Yeah.
Okay, I think today every organization is working in a multi-generation environment. We have Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z. Gen Alpha is going to be a big part of our workforce by 2028. Now we have to create the learning plans which is blended, which is not focusing only on technical skills but also helping people sharpening their general capabilities. That's one. Creating those micro learning platforms, right, where people can learn at their own pace, at their own convenient time. That's very important. That's one. What was the second part of the question?
Yeah, how do you retain and motivate talent in the fast changing environment?
Okay. So the second part is how do we build the overall quality of workforce? That's very important. Because if I'm an employee, inherently I want to work in an organization where I feel that I'm able to make meaningful contribution to the world. Right? I want to work with people who are smarter than me. I feel that I'm learning something new, something different in this organization. Right? There has to be a sense of meaning, sense of purpose. And as an organization, I want to see that how my work impacts the overall impact on the organization's success. So I think one of the speakers raised this point. Aligning to purpose and vision is very, very important. And I think that's the missing thing. And all the problem today we face, it all starts with organization purpose, vision, and one of the important area is company culture. Think about this, any product or service which we create today will be matched overnight by the competitors with better features at cheaper price. What competitors cannot copy or AI cannot copy, we have to focus on those areas. Company culture, leadership capability, employee engagement. Now this is something needs to be developed, nurtured and allowed to blossom over time. Now organization should focus on these areas.
Great, yeah.
Go in reverse order.
I think the word reskilling, upskilling has been used, and kind of sometimes I think that we have overused that word actually. Like we always tell about reskilling, upskilling, and especially in IT environment, this is a word which is mostly used these days. You have to upskill, you have to reskill yourself. But when I speak to the consultants, what I hear from them is that we have been asked to reskill a lot of things actually, but most of the things that we are reskilling doesn't add any value to us. It's just that somebody is forcing us to do. We are doing that one actually, and that was actually what the data actually showed us in our organization. We have been asking people to reskill on this technology X, Y, Z, on cloud or data in Python on these areas actually, but 60 to 70% of the people who have reskilled in those areas, they have never got an opportunity to work in those areas actually. So what is the purpose of doing all these reskillings actually? Just like I'm learning something, but if I'm not able to put that into use actually, or from an organization, if I'm not able to build a consultant because of the skills that he or she have earned, there's no use in the reskilling actually. So what we did in our organization was basically not only just making the employees to reskill, but looking at if we can handhold them in getting into those projects where they have reskilled. That's the most important aspect of that. We have to create that environment also along with those reskilling part to ensure that they are having that hands-on training or education to get into those areas where they are reskilled actually. So one classic case was that basically we had a test manager who was a test lead actually, was into this testing side for past so many years, about 10, 12 years, and this person had an aspiration to move into the project management side. So it was a difficult transition for a normal person because he cannot clear the interviews, etc. Because all the background has been the testing side, and moving into a project manager side was still difficult. So one of the coffee conversations that we had, so this person expressed the desire to move the career in this direction. So we decided that let's give it a try. So we asked the person to undergo we have an online platform where we do a small PMP course in that one. So we did that course. And after that, we definitely needed an environment where he can experience the project management skills. So we had to look at projects where he could shadow some of the existing PMs who are doing the work there actually. So that shadowing concept of putting the person in those project environment actually gave that person experience to get the hands-on experience of how the PM role works in and how it is being done, etc., etc., etc. And he could actually understand it in a real-time way actually. So that gave confidence for him to start attending interviews. Initially, we didn't clear the interviews, but over the course of 1 month or 1.5 months of time, I believe, with the support that we gave to that person, he was able to fetch a role as a project manager in a small project group. And it has been 3 years since he has been with the organization after that one, and he is flourishing as a good project manager there actually. And there are several case studies like this actually. So what I've seen is that it's just not the reskilling that or upskilling that matters, but it is the environment that we create along with that one is very important. Like, are we giving enough opportunities for the employees? What are the kind of handholding that we are able to provide to the employees? What are the kind of support system that we have to help these reskilled employees to move to their career of their choice or aspirations of their choice? I think building that is also a very important part of the culture of the organization, as Naga told.
Yes, I actually agree with what the previous panelists have mentioned, and I think in terms of motivation and engagement, I think that the starting point is having a very compelling vision for the future. So explaining the benefits to everybody as to why this change is important and how this change is going to make life easier, for the workforce, as well as the clients that the workforce is solving. If you can articulate that vision and demonstrate how, instead of working on some menial tasks, you get to work on much more interesting work that will add value to your customer, your client, will help to improve their life in some way, but will also make the person who's providing the service feel more respected and more valued. Then you have the workforce that's entering that change, which is all around us and cannot be ignored, with a different mindset, and that mindset is very important. So I think having that compelling vision and having the workforce that enters that change with the right mindset, will go a long way in building that motivation and building that engagement. Also, providing the opportunities for the people to experiment, running some proof of concepts, so they can, they can learn themselves. Take something out of the experiment. If the experiment works, apply it. Let's reductionize it. If it fails, great. What are the learnings from it? I think that creates a lot of engagement and a lot of buy-in from the workforce as well. And finally, in terms of I really agree with what's being said. Sometimes, if you roll out a mass training program, the chances are that not everyone is going to pick up or need the skill in the future. And I think what's important right now, especially in the fast-paced environment that we're all operating in, is self-learning. And in that regard, one of the things that I've done is to carve out some time for my team to actually spend the time to learn something that they feel they need to know, and then come back and share it with the rest of the team and see if it's something that can be applied in terms of our day-to-day work. I think that's a way of ensuring that you can get on top of the skill that you need, pretty much tomorrow or the day after or next week. And 2 weeks later, when a new skill is required, you can move on from that. Now, obviously, not every scenario is like that. To be a doctor, you still need to invest, 5 years or longer in getting that degree. But there's certainly a lot of examples where you can, learn the skill on the fly. And again, all the tools that we have in front of us, there's such a rich volume of learning and content that's available online. It's a question of cutting out the time and focusing in on the skill that's required, in the short term. So that's my thinking on this question.
Great, Alex. Yeah.
Thanks, Alex. Like you, I think I'm very lucky. I work for a company that's all about health and wellbeing. So the ease of connecting people to our values, our story, what we're trying to achieve is all about healthy living for every Australian and beyond. So when it comes to AI and keeping talent and that, we have a natural story that we can connect people to, and you either resonate with that or you don't. And using that as your pillar and your, I guess your pillars and your foundations that you come back to, people do have the means to explore. I'm lucky enough that even as late as last week, and I'm going to share a story now. As late as last week, we had an off-site with our leadership group, and the whole day was spent on our well-being and our leadership and how we were going to navigate the next 12 months of busyness around this, that, and the other. But really focused in on that and allowing us to look at our leadership, look at how we want to approach it, work with some really funky and amazing individuals that can help us do that. Now, I walked out of that session feeling 10 foot high and bulletproof, which was probably the design of it. But I had a really interesting conversation with one of my team yesterday, because one of the agreements we made during that session was to be moving more, because we learnt about just moving more during the day and what it does for your brain and all those wonderful things. I've obviously gone and shared that with my team, and one of my team said to me yesterday morning, "Are you okay if we do our one-on-one and I'm walking the dog?" I went, "Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Let's do that. We don't actually have to do anything on screen, so you walk, you talk, I'll walk, you talk, and I'll try and talk." But at the end of it, she said to me, "I can't believe we just done that. That's the most trusted I've ever felt in an organisation, where I didn't have to show everything. We had a conversation and we set goals for the next week or two of what we needed to achieve." So I think if you look at what all the different generations are coming through, each new generation wants to be trusted more than the other. They want to be open, they want to be... And in this case, I'm not talking about someone that's younger than me, I'm talking about someone that's older than me, and I don't look the same age. I'm not 44. I'm way older than that. But yeah, from that point of view, I think the trust piece is going to become the biggest thing. We're going to have to trust. I just think about the story yesterday. The trust thing is the biggest thing we need to navigate. And in a world of AI where there's decisions being made, we need to trust people, because they've got to make decisions on what inputs go into that, what gets used from it. Yeah, that's all I can share after a pretty good last week, I think.
Yeah, great. Yeah. So before we go on to the last question, organizational resilience, do we have any questions? Any of the audience have any questions? Yeah, yes, Sangeeta. To anyone? Yes.
Yeah, looking at this question is for panel. Anyone can answer this, please. We talk about AI, strategies, tools, algorithms, and all that. If AI could generate workforce plan in seconds, what's the role of the human strategies in the future going to be within workforce management? So are we architects or the auditors or just emergency contacts? Right? So what's the uniquely human decisions which can be replicated by algorithms?
That's a great question, Nagendra. I think now, since everything is done by AI, now still most of the organizations at this point in time are grappling with adopting AI on any digital technology transformation project. And what is the biggest hurdle we are facing today? And this is a global phenomenon, because I've worked in India, I've worked in Philippines, now in Australia. I see this as a common problem. And because the biggest, I think the gap or the challenge we are facing at this point in time is every organization is gravitating towards adopting AI. They want to process that change, but they are not processing the human emotions. And I've seen the large scale projects have failed because of this reason. People do not know why we are making those changes. What's in for them? What value is this going to create? Because AI, I think in today's world has already created so much of insecurity. There's so much. Today we are living in a VUCA world. Everything is volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. Every day brings a unique set of challenges, excitement, different things. Now, how do we navigate adopt? It's only through processing those emotions. Because technology, AI will give you optimized insights, but it's the leaders who will empathize, will ensure that those changes are smooth. I think that's what the role of human leaders is. While everything is happening, trust is going to be the most important currency. It is the foundation of any change or any relationship with trust. I think more than ever we have to focus on that currency. That's my concern.
Yeah, Rogers, go ahead, your insights.
I don't really have that much I can add to that, except to suggest that beyond emotion, there's been a bit of talk about culture. I think culture's an outcome of everything else. It's not something we work on. But as humans, we have the ability to interpret that probably a little bit more than AI at this stage. So coming back to what you were saying, the emotion in the decision, the inflection in a voice, all of those things that become key. And likewise, I can run a program tomorrow and it'll tell me that I can get something done by this time frame, but it doesn't account for the human factor in that. We can put some numbers around what those human factors are. But sometimes there will be that need to just have the individual have a look at it and that human touch come across it. And that's from a non-HR person.
Good to hear that.
Yeah. He said from the product perspective, factors is not there. From the variant, and then also just if you want to share, what if you come out with the tool which is AI based, where it does planning, forecasting, everything, where different professionals not required anymore, or probably maybe required at some level. Do you see?
Yes.
Yeah, your perspective. I know that variant is already way ahead and you got into AI.
They are. There's so much value to this, it's not funny. The change is difficult to keep up with. From an AI perspective, there's obviously a lot of change around forecasting and determining requirements initially, but also then how we can, as a number of people have spoken during the day, how we can minimize the administration tasks using AI as opposed to trying to replace people. I speak to people on a regular basis that are convinced that AI is going to take over the workforce planner's job, which I'm a big fan of saying it's not going to happen in the whole art and science of workforce management. From a solution perspective, we're constantly innovating and driving new changes, but it's very difficult to keep up with too because there's something new every 3 months, if not more often. So trying to keep on top of that with, as you mentioned, the Variant Enterprise product, we have branch capabilities, we have the Variant Professional, as you mentioned, we're finding that's now being sort of sunsetted to an extent so that we can focus on the core value proposition and how we can do some of the strategic planning. But our focus is really about integration and using things that customers have today rather than expecting them to replace them. So from a capacity planning perspective, we look at how we can introduce tools from that into our forecasts and how we use that moving forward. There's a lot of capabilities and that we've been asked about. A lot of stuff on the roadmap I can't actually tell you just yet. But there's just generally we're seeing that AI push in WFM is very demand driven.
That's good.
Yeah, I'll just add that I think at this stage you still have to validate the answers that you get from AI, depending on how where that information comes from, and how that solution, that WFM solution is is providing the answers. But there's also examples of where some of the models hallucinate, and so you've got to validate how it actually comes up with the answer that it comes up with. So I agree fully with what we've been talking about today, that AI is about augmentation at this point and not necessarily about the replacement. And I would still think that the role of WFM workforce manager is to we still need to set the strategy, work through the strategy, develop the strategy
Right.
with our counterparts within the and it's hard to see that function going away.
I think just to add to that, Alex, as well, I have a number of customers speaking on a regular basis about the magic button, that they want to be able to push that AI does everything for them and delivers a result. But the reality of that, and constantly we say, well, we want an AI to be able to make all these schedule changes and that without understanding the human side of that necessarily. So whilst it may look good on paper from a numbers perspective, we're seeing a very big trend towards obviously employee engagement and well-being, as Glenn says there. Well, you know what, the most efficient schedule I could possibly do would be you work for half an hour, then you have a 20-minute break, work for half an hour, come back later today. The reality is that doesn't work for people. So having that oversight from the human perspective still, I agree, I don't think that ever should go.
Sun wasn't there. Sudhir wasn't there. There's a question from Nagendra.
Yeah.
What if maybe the future of AI is going to
I heard the beginning, so
Yeah.
I want to respond.
Yeah.
So, and I think I just touched upon it during the presentation as well, where we see AI being deployed within a product, especially one which is human intervention heavy, like long-term capacity planning, is that it will be an assisted partner in that process. It's going to be AI assisted capacity planning, where a lot of heavy lifting will be done in terms of better data integration, utilizing AI, using some algorithms to identify from a data lake what is the relevant KPIs which have got to be brought over into the capacity plan. Using AI algorithms, which we have already started incorporating in better prediction of what your shrinkage assumption should be, what your attrition assumption should be. One way of doing it right now is, let's look at 13 weeks. Let us look at prioritizing the weightage of different weeks on the overall number and then using that assumption. But there are other AI assisted algorithmic models which can be inputted into that shrinkage and attrition trending. So that is where it helps. Your algorithms can help with the forecasting, but all that is, I think it will help with the input. The output still needs to be verified, because as I was mentioning, it's like magic. It's like an art form. Capacity planning has got a little bit more than just math. And that is where that capacity planner will find it faster and easier to do capacity planning, but we'll still have to put in the final input. We'll still have to go and validate if the organization is staying on track. And that's my perspective.
I think we all agree that coming AI into the workforce management world, significantly the workforce is going to be reduced.
It will impact the headcount
It
for
certainly
sure.
will impact, but maybe what percentage of that, you guys think in the next couple of years?
I think it will give opportunity for redeployment, because there's going to be other stuff which hopefully comes up from this. And you can take on more work with existing headcount, and that's how we have always pitched our return on investment. Your natural attrition should take care of your headcount reduction, so I don't think it is going to cause mass spread layoffs. In any case, WFM
is never a very heavy organization, right? We always operate and try to do lots with less. So there would be some overall headcount impact, but hopefully not mass layoffs.
I'd rather see the focus from vendors such as ourselves and yourselves around making sure that we're taking away those menial tasks to let you focus on the strategic objectives and better outcomes than actually having to sit there managing a historical pattern, for example.
That'll create more opportunity.
Yeah, so using AI more as a recommender than a decision maker too, I think is a good thought process as well, to be able to say, well, is what we could get versus the actual decision making of that making.
Thanks, Cecilia. In fact, IBM has recently announced that hundreds of HR folks have been laid off. Okay, for organizations like IBM, 100 is nothing, not even 1%. Yeah. It makes sense. So, okay, yeah, we move on to the next question. All right, so move to the last question, which is organization resilience. How do you rebuild the organization resilience? How has your WFM strategies supported business continuity and resilience, especially post-COVID and in uncertainty times? What are the roles of flexibility and then hybrid working and anytime working, anywhere working perspective? What do you see that 2025 and looking ahead, that you see the future of work and future of workforce, and how do you think that organizations should build a resilience? One is workforce, second one is workplace is concerned. What do you think that you should implement as a strategy and build a resilience where organization moves without any challenge, having the right people at the right time without much of impact, and having the right place of work? Any perspective on that? What do you see? Maybe you could talk about your organization perspective or maybe the market perspective.
I've got the mic, so I'll have a go at it. Yeah, so there are several aspects to this. So one is, I think hybrid working is really not going away. We've seen that after the latest election results in Australia. I think people love having the balance, and it sort of helps to maintain the lifestyle and juggling the family commitments as well as the work commitments. So I feel that hybrid working will continue to stay in place, and it's important for organisations to offer that as part of their environment that they're working in. So slightly off topic, but somewhat related. We were talking earlier. I was talking earlier to someone during the break about how, from a social benefit perspective, it would be, and we were sort of touching on it in terms of what will AI potentially do to headcount and roles, etc. There is a different way of looking at it, and that's to look at if we're generating so much productivity, that we're saving the organisation, a lot of money, we're generating the additional revenue, etc. Are we now at a point in time in history where we can say, well, we can allow the workforce to work less, where we can move to a 4-day week, because 100 years ago, in the 1800s, people were working 7 days a week. And then progressively, as the productivity has been uplifted, as you reduce back to 6 days, and then 5. And now with the also opportunities and capabilities that we have, potentially, and all of companies have already started doing this. There's an opportunity for our society to actually move to a 4-day week. And if that happens, and the companies that will offer this as a benefit will take the first advantage, and over a period of time, I think it will just become globally accepted. So I think whilst there's disruption, there is an opportunity to take some leadership and consider opening by creating the productivity improvements, the cost savings, and improvements in revenue. Allow people to do the 4-day week, which has shown to have a very good social benefit for the communities, for families, etc., etc. So I think there's some positive in this as well. And in terms of creating this resilience, again, number one is it's really important to have an engaged workforce and the right culture within the company. And it all starts with the vision. So you've got the vision, you've got the right culture, you've got the engagement from the people. And if you've got a culture where it's collaborative and people are there to help each other, that's part of the way that resilience can be established. Another way, and this is more on the technology side of things, more and more, we're at a point where we can run a 24/7 operation without people having to staff all the hours. So again, with Gen AI, with automation tools, we've got these concepts of self-healing systems. So an issue, production issue occurs. You've got technology that will be able to determine, sometimes even predict an issue occurring before it occurs, but also when it does occur, to be able to remediate. So it's a self-healing system concept. We're not 100% there yet, but there's very close, and a lot more work can be done to create that sort of that level of resilience. And the other aspect is in terms of developing partnerships. So which is kind of what we were talking about today as well. So having really good partners that can come to an assistance at the time when it's required is really important. And having those partnerships where you can draw on the right level of experience, the expertise, is also what can make the organization quite resilient. So these are my thoughts on this topic.
Okay, great. Yes, Alexia. Yes, Lucius.
Maybe add something final to that one. So we've seen the evolutions happening. Like 40 years back, if you look at when the concept of offshoring came into picture, people were hesitant, clients were hesitant, like, is it going to work out actually? Like, can we really offshore our work to other places? But over the course of last 25, 30 years, we have seen that this worked really well actually, because we adapted, the clients changed, we adapted to the environment of offshoring, and now we cannot think about living without offshoring actually. But move forward, like COVID came in actually, right? Nobody was thinking about a hybrid work environment, working from home. Some of the jobs were strictly classified as working only from office. They never thought that these kind of jobs could be ever worked from home. But COVID changed everything. Like we moved into work from home environment, and everybody adapted to that one very quickly. And we are seeing now it has become a norm. So everybody's talking about hybrid and working from home, etc. So I think it's evolving with the new changes coming in, new technologies coming in. We are also changing in that way. Like a couple of weeks back, happened, which I talked to one of my previous colleague who was a facility manager in our organization. Like after the COVID time, like a lot of our facilities got closed down because people were started working from home. So he was jobless actually. So I asked him like, what is he doing now? He said, I'm a marketing manager now actually. Like transition from a facility manager to a marketing manager. That was like surprising. Like how did the transition? I'm saying, as a facility manager, I had an opportunity to talk to a lot of people. I had improved on my communication skills during that work that they were doing, and I leveraged that to move into marketing actually. Look at the way in which people are reskilling and moving their jobs actually, right? So it's not like it's taking effort. Definitely with these changes, jobs are made redundant, but there are newer jobs and newer skills that people are picking up in the jobs which can be used in other areas. So I think that evolution is still happening. It will happen also with newer changes coming in, and I think we'll adapt. Every organization will adapt to that, but changes happen.
So in my mind, when we talk about resilience, if I define the resilience is it's rising again from the setback or failure. Now, we have learned a lot from COVID, and when I was in Philippines, the typhoon, cyclone, it was very frequent. And that point in time, I realized that resilience is built not during the crisis. It's built during when when you are at peace. So your processes, policies, systems, people should be resilient. So what would happen if there is a cyclone, and how quickly we are able to string those calls to either India or to any other country? That's an example of resilience. I think more than we build resilience in in our systems. I think Alex has very beautifully articulated that it has to be a part of organizational culture, right? And when we ingrain resilience as one of the dimensions of organization culture, that becomes our culture fabric. And now, how effectively or how efficiently we are able to plant that culture fabric in different organization systems, that's very, very important. The resilience, right? That's what comes to my mind at this moment.
Thanks, Anita. Yeah, just like yeah.
I'll try and keep my talk time down a little. I know we're probably out of time, but look, I think a little bit related to what you were saying. Resilience for me is not necessarily about the WFM system or the BCP or the way that we do that, but it's about our people. Now, as a person that sits in WFM, you'd be probably happy to hear that sitting in HR, but what we're actually talking about in this case is actually finding the best model, whether that be hybrid, finding back to base, whatever it might be for your people and your organisation, and each one of them is going to be different. We have different rules, different practices, depending on what the role is. I think that's going to be even more important. But yeah, for me, resilience is about building that, to your point, around the culture, but importantly within the individuals so that they can work within the values construct and also move and change with what's going to be needed. And what that is, we'll find out over the next little while together.
Yeah, to wrap up, I encourage you to say a few things that what is that in the era of AI, what are the skills and capabilities or competency should have for WFM leader or professional. Rethink that. Just maybe in a few sentences we just wrap it up. I mean that's going to be a takeaway for the panel discussion here.
I'm going to keep it to one word because I think it's what we've been talking about in a different way, but it's balance. And that is, our role is all about keeping people talking and collaborating and managing stakeholders and keeping it balanced across the organisation.
Great.
I'll use two words, relationships and collaboration.
Relationship and collaboration. Yes.
I think I would also with strategic as a word, because many times even though we say it's a strategic workforce planning, many times we don't end up doing that strategic stuff. We don't engage at the strategic level in most of the organizations. I think that is very important in the coming days, that we become that real strategic workforce planning function.
Absolutely. Bots are going to take over other jobs, maybe the operations or maybe tactical, right? Strategies where we need to be strengthening. Great.
I think I also echo the same sentiments. And how do we strike the right equilibrium between AI and that human element? That's very important, because already AI has already changed a lot the way we engage with people, we design roles, we deliver value. Everything has changed over a period of time.